Hello and welcome. We start with Kenya, where protests against the William Ruto government have picked up pace again. Now, anti-tax hike protests have turned into anti-Ruto protests as protesters call for President William Ruto's resignation. Now, this despite Ruto withdrawing the proposed tax hikes and refusing to sign the controversial finance bill. On Tuesday, protests that began peacefully in the capital, Nairobi, soon took a violent turn. Clashes erupted at the Nairobi business district, where police fired tear gas and used water cannons, while some of the protesters threw stones and also lit bonfires. There were incidents of looting shops and businesses. Video footage and images show residents firing handguns into the air during the demonstrations, while some protesters also placed coffins covered with Kenyan flags on the roads. As the reports, there have been multiple injuries in the latest clashes, while over 270 people have been arrested.
I sell clothes and shoes. I can't accept you to send me back home. Now it is a must that I defend myself and my business, and that is why I am carrying this baton, and I will do anything to protect my business.
Protests also erupted elsewhere. Large rallies were held in Kenya's second largest city and opposition stronghold, Mombasa. Protesters chanted slogans against Ruto, while there were some incidents of violence. Several cars were reportedly set on fire, while at least one shop was vandalized.
I feel like the developments that he's talking about is repetitive, and we want him to go because, okay, he has a lot of promises and he's not delivering. All he talks about is this one, we are planning to do this, we are planning to do this, and no, we are not pleased.
Authorities have condemned the violence. Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki has warned that the government will take action against anyone engaging in anarchic chaos and cruel plunder. However, several activists have blamed the latest violence on infiltrators, which they say had been unleashed by the government to discredit their movement.
Over time, what has happened is so that the peaceful protesters are deterred from coming to town, and we are deterred from actually coming and practicing our civic duty. We have seen now there's an increase of goons who are now being paid to come and just disrupt whatever we are trying to do. And it's very unfortunate, to be honest, because whatever we are doing right now, it's not just for the young people, it's not about the millennials or Gen Zs, it's for everyone. We as a country have gone through these problems from independence, and those are the things that we are trying to change.
As per rights groups, at least 39 people have been killed in the protests that erupted last month. The youth-led protests, which are not being influenced by any opposition party, have emerged as the biggest challenge for the President Ruto in his 2-year-long tenure so far. Ruto planned to introduce new tax hikes to raise around $2.7 billion to solve the country's massive debt crisis. However, massive public outcry over the bill forced him to roll back the measures. Many protesters fear that Ruto could still sign the bill before it officially expires next week.
To be honest, if this is what the government is doing to us, Ruto should leave. He is supposed to listen to common citizens. If he does not listen to the citizens, who will he listen to? We are the ones who elected him.
Amid huge public debt and rising inflation, Ruto has now been caught between the demands of lenders like the International Monetary Fund to cut deficits and the public's resentment against the cost of living crisis. He now says the country will have to come up with other ways to cut spending to fill the budget gap, while also highlighting the need to borrow more. It is to be seen how Ruto navigates this challenge while saving Kenya from plunging into further instability and chaos. Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Johnson Ndeur, who is an economic analyst and corporate finance expert, joining us live from Nairobi in Kenya. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. Johnson, despite President William Ruto making a U-turn on the tax hikes and considering that many of the protesters are young Kenyans, could you expand on the motivations and their demands now?
Well, the problem is that I think nobody trusts the president, largely because he has a track record of walking back on his promises. Now, the thinking right now is we have a debt crisis. The government has taken so much debt. Interest rates are well above teens, and this is 91-day T-bill rates, and that's causing economic chaos on one hand. And so to arrest this and to manage this, the government has opted to raise taxes rather than cut spending. And even as late as Sunday, whilst he did talk of cuts in a publicized roundtable meeting with at least 3 media houses, he spoke of cutting spending at one point, but then he also started speaking of borrowing 1 trillion Kenya shillings, which is sending mixed signals, because that means he's not really maybe sold on the idea of cutting spending. He prefers to borrow more as opposed to spending less. So I think that's causing a lot of concern.
Yes. And Johnson, what is the government's response? How is Ruto addressing the situation with regards to these protests?
So I think it was easy. It was easy to. I mean, everybody expected him to show some sympathy or empathy towards the victims, and none of that was demonstrated. Even when he was asked about an 8-year-old child, he didn't seem to have any empathy, and I think that really annoyed a lot of Kenyans across the country. So the lack of empathy on its own is infuriating, and the question then is, whose president is this? But then if you go beyond that,
right.
If you look at the response of the government, is heavy-handedness, marks of somebody who's looking to protect his reign, as opposed to somebody who's looking for solutions for his own citizens. So the perspective and the tenor of the government's reaction leaves a lot to be desired.
Is a matter that we have discussed.
Can you tell us more about the claims by the protest groups and activists blaming President Ruto's government of sending infiltrators to discredit their movement?
So if you look at the government response, seems a bit heavy-handed when it's dealing with the peaceful guys, but non-existent when it's when there is looting and when there is destruction of property. I think the only destruction of property that maybe could be attributed to the protesters, and even then I'm not quite sure, is the invasion of parliament. So the free reign of the quote unquote gangsters, and the absence of police in that situation, and then the presence of police in situations where people are peaceful, is asking raises a lot of questions. So on Sunday, this Sunday, there was a impromptu protest, and it was very peaceful because nobody knew about it. Nobody expected it, and therefore clearly there was no opportunity for infiltrators to organize and deploy, and therefore such instances lend credibility to the idea that they are infiltrators who the government is using to discredit the protests.
Yeah. Right, Johnson, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for bringing us the latest coming out of Kenya.
Pleasure.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon fans move across to the West Indies. What can we expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
We start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. The first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.